Here's the point now. He cannot be equal with God and not be God. The fact that he's equal with God means that he must be divine, because no created being can be equal with God. The angels are not equal with God. No, the fact that he's equal with God makes him divine, makes him God. So this is first of all, this is a very powerful passage against anyone who teaches that Jesus Christ is a mere created being. Because a created being cannot be equal with God. But now here is something else now. All right, here is it now. There's some things that we need to understand here. And there are three questions that we're going to have to ask if we're going to come to a proper biblical understanding of this text. Number one, what is, or what does this phrase mean? What it says, though in the form of God. Though in the form of God. That's one. Two, the idea that in the form of God is something that we need to look at. Then we need to look at emptied himself. All right? Emptied himself. The third thing that we need to look at is in the likeness of men. So it is the form of God, emptied himself, and the likeness of men. If we can understand what these three phrases are emphasizing and teaching, then the passage becomes clear and the confusion would be over. All right, now here are some things that we want. Verse 5 begins, so the verse I want, verse 6 begins, who, right? So clearly it is about Jesus Christ. And you might say, well, that's obvious, right? But here is it now. Paul is looking at Jesus Christ existing in the form of God and taking on the form of man, or the likeness of man. You see that? Jesus, though in the form of God, okay, he emptied himself and became in the likeness of men. Now, that is significant. Now, in the form of God means that the word that is used here is the word morphe, or morphe. M-O-R-P-H-E, that's the Greek. Good? Mm-hmm. Now, yes. What does that word suggest? It suggests that in this case, Paul is comparing, well, before I go to that, the morphe here, or morphe, or morph, here means the essential nature of a thing. Good? The essential nature of a thing. But not only that, it is the essential nature of a thing that does not change. Make sense?
Yes.
It's the essential natural essence of something that is unchanging.
So so we're talking about the pureness of Christ never changed. The aspect of him before he was in existence and the beginning to where he gave himself, it never changed. He was pure. That will make him acceptable to God as a propitiation.
It's more than just purity. It's his nature. It's his very essence.
Okay.
What he is in his very nature and being God.
Yes.
That does not change.
So when John
hold a minute. So it is not that it changed when he became man. That remained. That changed. Yes, okay. That is unchanging. He is who he is. He is in the very nature of he is in the very nature of his being God.
So he is God in nature, but in the likeness, he's man in flesh.
And I'm going to come to that. Because you see, that's what we have in verse 6 and 7. You with me?
Yes.
All right. But then notice Paul says, though he was in the form of God, he did not consider equality with God.
Okay. What that mean?
He was equal with God. He did not consider equality with God something that he had to retain, hold on to. He didn't jealously guard. He didn't consider that to be jealously guarded.
He knew who
now,
he was. He knew who he is. He knew who he was. There was no self-doubt in him.
And here's the point.
Though he were his son.
Yeah, you see, here is the point now. He cannot be equal with God and not be God. The fact that he's equal with God means that he must be divine. Because no created being can be equal with God. The angels are not equal with God. No, the fact that he's equal with God makes him divine, makes him God. So this is first of all, this is a very powerful passage against anyone who teaches that Jesus Christ is a mere created being. Because a created being cannot be equal with God. But now here is something else now. It says he did not consider equality with God something that should be grasped. But what did he do? He emptied himself. I'm going to come back to that. Now, there's another word that Paul uses here, and Paul uses the word schema. schema, the word schema. The likeness of men is schema, right? Schema.
Yes, well, no.
Schema, schema. It means the appearance.
So John 1:14, he did not come by the will of man, but by the will of God.
All right. Okay, he came, by the will of God, in terms of he came to fulfill God's will of redeeming and submitting himself to the will of God to redeem man. Let me give you I'm going to give you two illustrations. I gave you one illustration last week, and I'm going to give you it again, and make application with it. And I'll give you another one. As I said, here are three persons that have equal shares in a company. Good. The company falls into legal trouble, and one of the shareholders who own the company, these three people who own the company, one of them have to go to prison in order to save the company. I decide, we amongst us, that okay, I will take the rap and I will go to prison. So all of the privileges and all of the thing that goes with me as a director of the company, a shareholder in the company, is put on hold while I serve my time. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm still a shareholder. I'm still a person who owns the company. All right? How does the passage say that Jesus Christ emptied himself?
What's it?
It says, look at the verse, by taking the form of a servant and being in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even to the death on a cross. That's how he humbled himself. By taking on the form, the appearance of man, by submitting himself to the will of God, by becoming obedient to the will of the Father, to the point, even to the point where he was willing to die on a cross. That's how he emptied himself.